Welcome everybody to the Straub Sports Show. Big Bro rocking with you solo here this week as my sometimes co-host Little Bro Drew is on another work trip. He is in Mexico this week. He is on a work. I won't give his location. I won't disclose his location, but he's making big time engineer things happen. So shout out to Little Bro. He's currently at work now, so I don't know if he'd be able to jump into the comments or rock with us at all, but it doesn't matter. Big Bro's rocking with you here. I'm going to take us, it's going to be like a 30-minute special Sports Center edition. I'm going to take us through all our news and notes. I'm going to recap the Super Bowl. I'm going to talk about some NBA news. I'm going to talk about our Cavaliers. And of course, I'm still going to talk about the footy, even though I don't have any of his graphics. Shout out to me for basically deleting them out of the StreamYard. But yeah, that's what I get. But that's all right. We'll still rock with it. We'll still roll with it. And we'll make things happen today. But first thing I want to do is let you know what is going on and where you are watching the show today. And that's with a little thing that I cooked up for us today.
The Straub Sports Show. You can find us all over social media. You can find us on X at Straub Sports. You can find us on TikTok at the SBSS. You can find us on Instagram, Straub Sports Show, and on Spotify, the Straub Sports Show. I also like to make sure give a shout out to our YouTube page, the Straub Sports Show. It is your one-stop shop for everything Straub Sports Show, whether it's the podcast, our interviews with Brown Legends, our interviews with the Falls Rapids coaching staff and players, or throwback to our last year interviews with Akron City FC. Anything Straub Sports Show is there on the Straub Sports Show YouTube page.
Oop, sorry about that. Trying to get all the mechanics down. But yes, Straub Sports Show YouTube page. Shout out to everybody who's watching us there. And shout out to everybody who's watching on my Facebook page. Now, without further ado, let's get to the news. The news presented to you this week by the Falls Rapids.
Straub Sports Show, we are the official broadcast team for the Falls Rapids. Make sure you catch our broadcast live on the Straub Sports Show YouTube page for all of our preseason and regular season games. We want to give a big shout out to our guys over at Sports Tank, for they will be broadcasting our broadcast over in the UK and Ireland. Big shout out to those guys. Make sure you follow them on Facebook as well. Make sure you catch all of our interviews with the Rapids on our Instagram and our YouTube page. And make sure you follow the Falls Rapids on Facebook and Instagram. Hashtag spread the wave.
All right. So now let's get into the news. A panel this week ruled for Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez in becoming majority partners for the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll start there in the NBA. That Minnesota franchise, not a lot of people know just because obviously they just see good basketball, has been in fluctuation with ownership. It hasn't been a good thing back and forth there for years. So hopefully they get some clarity there. Sticking around in the NBA, sources. And it was sources, but it officially happened a couple hours ago. The Charlotte Hornets have filed a grievance and are exploring ways to dispute the Los Angeles Lakers' failed physical assessment of center Mark Williams. This is going to be a tough one just because, I mean, how do you tell a doctor? This is going to come down to doctors arguing with each other. How does one doctor tell another doctor, no, he's fit to play when one says he's not fit to play? They're probably going to have to find somebody independent to come in and take care of that situation. But yeah, that's a tough one. The Lakers did make a move. In the meantime, they signed center Alex Len, who was a free agent, to make up for that spot for right now. But we'll see what happens. There's players involved in the trade. Some the young Lakers guard Knight decided to sit out because he quote trying to get his head together, trying to get his head wrapped around what's going on. So we'll see what happens there. Daniel, what's popping, brother? Appreciate you rocking with me today. I need all my comment section filling up and blowing up today. As like I said, as you see, I'm solo as little bro's down in Mexico getting work done on a work trip. Can't join me today. He's currently at work. But it don't matter. We're keeping it rocking. Let's keeping it rolling with the news as well. We have our first introduction to our NCAA men's and women's top 25. And we will start on the men's side. Number 1, Auburn remains there despite a loss this week to number 3, Florida. UConn, your defending back-to-back national champion, are out of the top 25 for the first time in 2 years. So all of that talking, all of that squawking, all of out of Dan Hurley, and all of that losing is not doing good for UConn right now. Now, I don't really think they're in any jeopardy to miss the tournament, which at the end of the day, it's really what matters. I mean, let's just be honest. But still not a good look for their UConn. I don't know what needs to happen. I don't know if Dan Hurley needs to take a step in the mirror and figure out something, but it's not good there. But where it is good, St. John's, despite an upset last night, they are in the top 10 for the first time since 1999-2000. Shout out to them. Arizona, your biggest riser on the men's side, up 7 spots this week. Creighton and Clemson, your newcomers to the top 25. I'm going to keep this updated like I did the NCAA football top 25. So next year I will next week, you'll see your risers and your fallers and things like that. And yeah, Daniel, Duke definitely has a squad. I'm not going to lie. I kind of, when I pick and choose my college basketball games at the beginning of the season, Duke was somebody that I kind of kept an eye on. Obviously, they're talented. But I've also watched this Tennessee team a couple times. They're dangerous. But yeah, the men's bracket is a bit open in terms of I don't necessarily think any of these guys at the top are going to run away. However, I think Duke, I think Duke is a very good team. So is Florida. I mean, and this Auburn team is making a run as well. There's good teams, but I don't think there's no UConn this year. Which is funny because we just talked about UConn dropping out of the top 25. But yeah, there is no UConn this year. So I think the field is a little bit more open in terms of who could win it all come March. Speaking of being wide open, and I know it's not necessarily been something we've been talking about because when there's been, kind of a dominant team for the recent years, and we'll switch over to the women's side, your UCLA Bruins are your unanimous number 1 as they remain undefeated. I don't want to say nobody saw this coming because UCLA had a good squad this year, returned a lot. So people definitely had them tagged to be a top team, but I don't know if a lot of people at this point in the season thought that they would be undefeated. Now we talked about it last year on the men's side, going undefeated and I know the loss column here on the men's side, obviously the 2 losses is your least amount there for Auburn, but the men's side, we don't care about going undefeated necessarily anymore just because we know how many games these teams play. We know how long the schedule is. But on the women's side, we've had some dominance, with South Carolina, obviously with UConn years ago, Baylor's couple of years, Tennessee's couple of years, Notre Dame's good years. But, we've seen some dominance, but UCLA has been that team this year. I want to give a big shout out, of course, just because little bro's here, not to deflect doesn't mean I'm not going to talk Notre Dame. But I want to give a big shout out to my lady Fighting Irish and Hannah Hill Doggo. They moved up to number 2 this week after Texas beat South Carolina 66-62. So some other things around there helping. I think we should talk about that too. South Carolina, not the dominant blow everyone out runaway squad that they have been the past couple of years. However, I'm not sleeping on them in any sense. And when we start to get to tournament time and it starts to, games get tight, I mean, who are you really going to bet against? Who are you going to bet more chips on than Dawn Staley? I mean, we just got to be honest about it there. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad, it's panic time in South Carolina because the Gamecocks have 2 losses. But at the same time, I think for the first time in a couple of years, I think this women's bracket and this women's top 25, it's all kind of come back to life, kind of come back to, not to life. It's all kind of come back together. The pack has shortened a little bit. There's no runaway. I even don't consider UCLA a runaway, even though they're undefeated. I mean, I tag my Irish against anybody in the country at any point. Texas is good. You saw them in the upset of South Carolina. I still wouldn't sleep on South Carolina. I still wouldn't sleep on Floja Johnson and LSU. They're always dangerous. Juju Watkins at USC is a star. So, and when it comes tournament time, stars turn up, stars are the answer, and stars how you win games. So we'll see what happens there. But I definitely think on the women's side, it's definitely a lot closer. It just the same way as on the men's side. But I think that's exciting to see because they're still stars. I mean, Paige Buckner's still at UConn. I mean, they're still there. I do want to give a shout out to UConn. The men's side has had a tumultuous week in couple of weeks, but I think it's fair to give the women some shout out. They have now spent 600 weeks ranked in the top 25. That is the longest streak ever, and it dates back to the preseason poll back in 1993. That's just stupid. Okay, this team has been in the top 25 since 1993. I'll take a sip of water and let that breathe because that was worth it. There's your stat of the day. So, and I also want to give a shout out to Creighton. Not just the men's side, the women have snuck into the top 25 this week, as well as Baylor, as Vanderbilt and Cal dropped out of the top 25. And that'll do it for the news section. Now it's time to give away some awards. And as always, we start with our backhand upside the head of the week, your Straub bruh of the week. And first, I'm going to sit on my high horse. I don't have my brother here to complain about how many of these I have, so it doesn't really matter. First things first, to all of you who sit in your living rooms eating your nachos and eating your wings and eating your pizza and your party meatballs, whatever it might be, and you sit every year and you complain about a Super Bowl halftime show, I don't know what to tell you. You're miserable and no one likes you. That's all I got to say about that. Shout out to Kendrick. That was a great show. We rewatched it the next day because obviously my son and fiance were asleep by then. My son was dancing around the living room just like everybody else's, and just like everybody else was. So if it wasn't for you, too bad. That's all I got to say about that. Secondly, Kansas City Chiefs for not bothering to show up to the Super Bowl and ruining anyone's bets that had any parlay going with the Chiefs with anything other than Xavier Worthy. Just sucks. And lastly, wasn't going to forget about this. I didn't get to give them to officially when the trade happened, but then they continue to dig themselves in a bigger hole. In my mind, the Dallas Mavericks organization, who were ejecting fans for having signs that said "Fire Nico," their general manager, and for then showing fans on the Jumbotron who said "Fire Nico," and then subsequently tossing them out of the arena. You jerks got to eat this. I mean, just flat out. You sold and traded an all NBA generational talent, one of the only players to make 5 all NBA teams in the first 5 years of playing. All because you didn't like Luka's fitness. Well, I'm sorry. You deserve this. And I hope that more fans make signs that say "Fire Nico." I hope they boo. I hope they make I hope they make it a miserable experience because they have every right to. And also an extra straw bruh of the week to Mark Cuban, who was turning around and screaming at fans who were saying "Fire Nico," and that was it. There was nothing racial attached. There was no derogatory words attached. It was literally signs that just said "Fire Nico." And when they showed said fan on the Jumbotron, he mouthed, "Fire Nico." That was it. That's it. And we're tossing them out. Well, if you don't want your fans to be upset, don't make shitty trades. Okay. And no offense, when we talked last week about the trade, there was hope. Yes, when Anthony Davis comes in, yep, they think they might be a title contender now this year because all they gave up was Luka. They kept all the parts that they had around Luka to begin with Kyrie. The Mavericks are going to be able to make a run. Anthony Davis comes out in his first game and balls out for the first 3 quarters, and now he's out indefinitely because they traded for somebody who's always out indefinitely, and now your fans are pissed, and they have every right to be. So that's how I feel about that. In the meantime, it is time for your Straub Bro of the week, and obviously everybody knows your Straub Bro of the week is presented to you by Create Your Own Wave Apparel.
We'd like to give a big shout out to somebody who's been rocking with us since day one of the podcast, and that's Austin Fink over at Create Your Own Wave Apparel. Make sure you follow them on Instagram at Create Your Own Wave 2021 for all of the latest gear, and get your apparel at cyowapparel.myshopify.com. Don't ride the wave, create your own.
All right. Remember, Straub Bro of the Week presented to you by Create Your Own Wave Apparel. Don't ride the wave, create your own, and become a Straub Bro of the Week. Now, we're going to get this out of the way nice and easy, okay? I'm going to talk about the Super Bowl, okay? Bro's not here to give you too many nerdy stats, although I've got some good ones for you. He's also not here to bring level-headedness. So if you thought for a half a second that any Philadelphia Eagle was about to show up in this segment, you don't watch this show. Okay. All that level-headed is gone this week. We'll talk about the Eagles. We'll crown them when they deserve to be crowned. But it ain't in Straub Bro of the Week. First things first. I've got all good stuff here this week anyways. My first one goes to Hubie Brown. Legendary NBA announcer, announced his last game as he retired this week. An ABA champion and legendary coach of the Hawks and the Grizzlies. A great basketball mind. Who was also very unapologetic on the mic and told viewers exactly how he felt about players, coaches, the league, fans. It didn't matter. Hubie Brown did not hold back. Somebody, like I said, with an extensive basketball knowledge. You never listened to a broadcast with Hubie Brown on it and left yourself going, I don't really know what's going on. If you were a novice of the game, he broke it down for you in a way that taught you so you could watch along and know exactly what was going on. And if you were someone more advanced with a bigger knowledge of the game, the things he would show you to break it down further and the way he would tell stories and advance things, just a legend. Sad to see him walk away, but glad to see that he's walking away on his own terms. Good luck in retirement, Hubie Brown. Also, I want to give a special shout out to oh, sorry, I was out of order there. Dickie V, who came out of retirement. We had one retirement and we have one coming out of retirement. Dickie V came out of retirement this week and returned to play-by-play after fighting off cancer once again. I love it. Whoa, baby. I gotta, Dickie V, somebody I've grown up, it's the voice of college basketball to me. There's nobody who I remember voicing college basketball more than Dick Vitale. So glad to see that Dickie V is back. Glad to see that he beat cancer again. And yeah, baby, keep kicking cancer's ass, Dickie V. Hopefully you do not have to kick its ass again, and this is the last time for you. And yeah, Pops, I agree 100%. You always learn something from Hubie Brown on the broadcast, and the same way you learn something from Dickie V. I know he's not everybody's cup of tea. Some people think he's overboard, and he's actually, I love it. He's perfect for college basketball in the same way, that some of these college football announcers, Dickie V is college basketball. He gets riled up with the kids. He has a great time. He's into the atmosphere. I'm sorry, I found the name. He's Gus Johnson of college basketball. The same way people can criticize Gus Johnson and think that he gets too excited over a 15-yard Ohio State touchdown. But it's the same way. He's great for it, and it's good to see Dickie V back in the booth there. And lastly, a little bit more serious note, but a good one. I want to give an early footy shout out and a special shout out to the Brentford Football Club. They play in England's top league, the Premier League. If you're familiar with our show and you stick around to the end, that is our league that we talk about. If you are familiar, you know exactly who I'm talking about. There was a story that was posted online. I want to give a shout out to my buddy Ray, who sent it over to me, and I immediately knew where it was going. They got a call, and the person who posted it online was said person. They were a season ticket holder who got a call from the club, as every season ticket holder does. So, of course, more money, renewing seats, upselling some seats, some extra packages, money, give to the club. Nope, not at all. It was a phone call just to chat and to ask how said person's mental health was, and if there was anything the club could do to help, if there was anything that was going on in their life that they needed help with. This is a great gesture. Mental health is real. And especially, I know it's not as big of a stigma for women, but us men, we don't like to talk about it. We like to shy away from it. And being a man is admitting when you need help. So shout out to Brentford, and shout out to anybody else, man. If you're feeling down and you feel like you need to talk to somebody, talk to somebody. Doesn't matter who it is. Friends, family, a stranger, therapist, counselor, whatever it might be. If you need help, man up and find some help. So big shout out to Brentford. And that is your Straub Bros of the week.
We'd like to give a big shout out to somebody who's been rocking with us since day one of the podcast, and that's Austin Fink over at Create Your Own Wave Apparel. Make sure you follow them on Instagram at Create Your Own Wave 2021 for all of the latest gear, and get your apparel at cyowapparel.myshopify.com. Don't ride the wave, create your own.
Oh, all right. That was a quick one to let me reset there. All right, it's time to talk about it. Biggest game in the world, biggest game in the land, biggest thing in the history of Earth. The Super Bowl 59. I mean, man, what a disappointment. Let's just be honest. Where do we even start? What can you say other than, with history on the line, for the first time in 3 years, the Kansas City Chiefs couldn't rely on Patrick Mahomes and the pass rush to just fill the holes of the rest of the team and fill the deficiencies that this team has had. And they didn't show up, in my mind, with that championship pedigree, with that championship attitude. It looked like, to me, Philly was the team that had been there before and was poised and was ready and knew what plays to be made. It looked like Kansas City. It looked like it was their first Super Bowl. They looked shook. They didn't look in sync at all. Now I know, and we're going to talk about it, and a ton of credit for that deserves to go to Nick Sirianni and this Eagles offense and this Eagles defense, especially for how they played, for the way they got to Patrick Mahomes, for the way that he scrambled around and ran away. But I mean, Kendrick had more yards than the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, it's not a lie. I mean, all those shuffles were going a lot further than anybody else was. Yeah, I mean, and it's not even to be a joke, but Kermit and company showed up, not the two-time champs. Yeah, I agree 100%, Bobby. It was surprising. It really was surprising. And yes, Philly was hungry, Craig. I completely agree. And I'm going to give a lot of credit to Philly here in the second half of this Super Bowl conversation, but I'm really surprised by how the Chiefs showed up, regardless of how that offensive line looked. We've seen that offensive line show up in a Super Bowl and get whooped, and they still played better than this. That we saw this offensive line not play well in an AFC championship game, in an AFC divisional game, and they still don't look like this. They just haven't. On the defensive side, no, not one blitz the whole game. One of the things, excuse me, and I don't have to worry about what Drew said last week is his own fault for being in Mexico. He has to give his own points when he's here. I told you, Kansas City plays man coverage more than any team in the league. That press coverage, they play it more than any team in the league. They talked about it on the pregame and all of that. Philly clearly showed you, once again, we're going to get into it, that they were going to move the ball on offense through the air. They pretty much held Saquon Barkley in check for the most part. So at some point, you got to take a chance. I don't get it. You cannot just sit back and allow a quarterback to just torch you. Especially now, don't get me wrong. Yes, there was a lot of us who thought maybe the second quarter would be different. No. Okay, first quarter, that's it. They're going to get rolling now. And then we're watching the second quarter, and everybody's looking around going, wait a minute. And then, in halftime, they're going to come out and perform the Tom Brady Patriots miracle? I don't think anybody believed that. I don't honestly think they believed it in the Kansas City locker room. And I also told you, not to quote myself, the way for this Philly team to get out into it, or to get the Super Bowl, was to get out to a big enough lead where Kansas City had the press and you can unleash this defense and the game would be over before Kendrick Lamar had us all singing in our living room, A minor. And what happened? The game was over before then. Okay. So all credit, well, 90% of the credit can go over to Philly for being hungry for the way this defense played. But I still think some of this needs to be talked about, that it was just absolutely shocking the way Kansas City showed up to this game. I got to be honest there. Now, let's switch sides. Let's get over to Philly. Philly had a game plan, and they had the game plan that multiple teams have scripted up over the past 4 years, 5 years to beat this Kansas City Chiefs team. The difference is Philly has an elite running back, a top-tier quarterback, an elite wide receiver core, an outstanding offensive line, an amazing defensive line, a fast, quick tackling to the ball, and turnover-hungry defense. Every other team who's had the same game plan to try to beat Kansas City, there's been something missing, whether it was Josh Allen not playing well, or Philly coming up short in the Super Bowl, or anyone else who's come up short in the Super Bowl. The game plan's been there, but there's been some deficiencies. There's been a hole somewhere that Mahomes in this offense and Mahomes in the defense, Chris Jones in the defense, they were able to exploit. Philly don't have any holes. And you're not going to, and they showed it 99% of the year. When you look at this year as a whole, which is why I hate sometimes going week to week, because we have to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Yes, there was some one-offs this year where you can point and go, hey, that Philly offense doesn't look great. But there were very few times this year you could look and go, oh, this Philly team didn't look good at all. Because there was a game plan that was instilled from Nick Sirianni from the minute they picked up Saquon Barkley, which is, this guy is going to lead us to the dance. This guy is going to get us there. And Nick Sirianni also said, I have a quarterback who may not go out here and sling it around like Josh Allen. He may not go out here and run and sling it around like Lamar Jackson. He may not just sit in the pocket and throw it like Joe Burrow. But when I ask him to run the game plan, you can argue that there are not many quarterbacks over the past 3 years, other than Patrick Mahomes, that runs the game plan to success better than Jalen Hurts. Maybe Jared Goff, possibly, but we see what happened to that defense in Detroit. Philly didn't have that problem. That defense was stacked front to back. Okay? The offensive line is stacked. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. The tight end, they got the tight end. They got Saquon Barkley, the best running back in the league. When you have that put together, then you put the game plan that they put together, which was to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes and force them to make quick plays that were going to beat them or run the ball. Two things Kansas City's not done very well all year with. When you put that perfect game plan with that roster, that's a championship team, and it's why they won. When you look at the totality of the season, this Philly team has been big, dominant, and physical all year. They led the NFL in explosive plays, and majority of them, and they were still an offense that was running the ball 70% of the time. That's success. Now, it's fair to point out, though, because I did talk about it. I've talked about Saquon. I talked about the best running back in the league. Saquon Barkley got them to the big dance, but the others, as Shaq calls them, and it's not fair to call them others in football because it's just too spread out in terms of success. The others won this ring. And I'm not saying that Saquon had a bad game, but by the measure of what Saquon has been this year and recently, it wasn't a great game, and they still got it done. Why? Because for the second game in a row, Jalen Hurts did something that he has not done in the entire playoffs, and that's throw for over 175 yards and win a game. 221 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have the 1 interception, but it didn't hurt them. Or, I mean, hey, my brother's not here, so I'll say it. It didn't hurt them. And what's up, moms? Thanks for popping in with us. Solo dolo, baby. But it didn't hurt them. And everything he did, there was never a wasted play. Everything was a first down, getting them close. There was no wasted yardage. There was no wasted downs. He had 72 yards rushing out of Jalen Hurts, which was just absolutely huge as well. But this game was won through moving it in the air when Jalen Hurts wasn't taking off for these clutch gains with his leg. And when I went back through, I watched the game. I remembered seeing it, but it looks a little different when you can go back and read through the drives. And I went back through each of Philly's scoring drives, and it's what stood out was how many times it was Jalen Hurts scrambled for 12, first down. Jalen Hurts scrambled for 24. Jalen Hurts scrambled for 7. Jalen Hurts scrambled for 6. There was no time where it was just, oh, Jalen's just scrambling and running around. He's trying to get away, like we saw with Patrick Mahomes. Ray, remind me. I'm gonna get to your question at the end of it. But Jalen Hurts moving the ball through the air, moving it in clutch situations, and picking up clutch first downs in a Super Bowl, something we normally say about Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. That offense, though, was moving. Barkley, 6 catches for 40 on top of his rushing yards. Deshaun Dotson, got to bring it up. 2 clutch catches early on that got them right down the field for that first score. That happens in the Super Bowl, man. It every year. I mean, you have to think this is the one time all year a team doesn't have to worry about next week. They don't worry about, will I have to see this team again? No, everything's on the table. Everyone is there. So I'm not surprised in that first drive, Kansas City's trying to keep Saquon in check. And they did in the first drive. First couple of drives, honestly. We're trying to keep Saquon in check. We're trying to look at A.J. Brown. We're trying to keep Devonta Smith in check. Somebody's got to be open, and it was Dotson. So those 2 big catches helped early. A.J. Brown, another 43 yards and a touchdown. Devonta Smith kind of stepped out, though. He's kind of been lost behind Saquon Barkley and A.J. Brown, but he's a good wide receiver. He's a quality kid. Caught the first pass of the game, which ruined my first catch parlay. Appreciate you. And he balled for 69 yards and a touchdown. Now, I know these aren't gaudy numbers. Ken, you're saying that the offense balled out, but you're talking about 40, 43, 69 yards. It's the Super Bowl, man. This is how it happens. Every drive is important. You know, it's not just slinging the ball down the field wildly. That's also not how this Philly offense works, even when it's humming at its best. And they got to a point where, yeah, I understand when you wake up and you look at a score that says 40-22, you go, oh, that's kind of a close game. No, it was not. So at some point, Philly was grinding out drives and going, we don't need to press. We don't need to push. We just need to take everything that's given to us. And they did that. So now I want to move forward, and I'll bring Ray's question in as we move forward. But I want to give congratulations, as much as it pains me, to the Philadelphia Eagles for winning the Super Bowl. We'll start there with the Eagles. It's so easy to just say, hey, let's move forward now. Let's run it back. The thing I do worry about with the Eagles, objectively, honestly, this whole thing has been redemption. This whole thing has been we're gonna get back. We're gonna right the wrong from 2 years ago. Now that you're there, now that you did it, now what? You know that it's not so easy to then turn it around and have that motivation again. Yeah, I know it's easy to say, well, Ken, they want to win a Super Bowl. Yeah, but when you put so much into getting there, and guys have talked about it, coaches have talked about it, players have talked about it. When you do so much to get there, sometimes when you lose, it breaks you and you can't get back. But sometimes when you win, the success is so rewarding that it's hard to actually put yourself back in that mindset to literally do anything possible to get back to that game. Not to mention the toll that winning takes on your roster, your salary cap. So, yes, it's very easy to say Philly just turns this thing around and they go grinding it out right back again for another one. An injury to an offensive lineman, an injury to Saquon Barkley, or it's football. They were very blessed to not be hurt this year. Jalen Hurts with a little bit of injuries, but I just wonder what the toll that took on Philly, and I wonder if they struggle a bit next year to be dominant. I'm not saying they'll miss the playoffs. We know there's a huge turnover in the NFL in terms of teams that have made the Super Bowl who don't make the playoffs, teams that made the playoffs one year who don't make it the year after. So we'll see what toll that takes. I think Philly will be solid. I think Philly will be good. That defense is going to be good for years to come. I just wonder what the toll and then the celebration and the reset. I wonder when we get to that reset, how big of a reset it is for Philly to make another run next year. Now let's go back over to the Kansas City Chiefs where we started. Now, X and O's, I think it's pretty simple. You invest into this offensive line and you run it back. Because if we could be objective for a minute and step out of the 40-22 game, why was it 40-22? Because they couldn't give their quarterback 2 seconds to stand in the pocket and throw the ball. He had no time. His interceptions were forced for the most part because he was being absolutely drilled on every other play. And if he wasn't being drilled, he was running for his life, and not to a point where he could actually pick his head up and throw the ball, because we know Patrick Mahomes, if he isn't the best at it, he's 1A, 1B in the league of that improvisation of being able to take off and get rid of the ball. And he couldn't do it. So if I'm seeing that and I'm watching that and I'm saying this is the best quarterback we have in the league at that, and he can't do it, that tells me that, one, the defensive line is getting there. Okay, but is it every play, or does he still have some time and he's not making throws? No, it was every play. The man had no time the entire game until it was the fourth quarter and it was over, and who knows who was in at that point. So invest in the offensive line and let's run this back. Xavier Worthy is going to be a good NFL wide receiver. Juju Smith-Schuster has shown up and been clutch for them. Figure out what's going on with Travis Kelce, potentially draft a tight end in the draft anyways. But invest in this offensive line and shore up a couple spots on defense and run this thing right back. So on the field wise, that's exactly what I would say there. And it was Rico who asked the question. So my bad, Rico. I didn't give you credit for your question, but I'll go back to Rico's question. Do I think Patrick Mahomes is still in the GOAT conversation? Yes. Yes. And I don't mean to be dismissive of the question. It's a good question. And the reason I wanted to do this whole thing right here, I am not going to sit here in a sport like football in the NFL and say, well, if you don't go undefeated in the big game, you're not the GOAT. I don't know. Like Tom Brady, who before he retired and before this Patrick Mahomes run, unequivocally was the GOAT. We would all somebody would mention Joe Montana and we would go, all right, that's cool, that's nice, that's fun, that's cool. But no, it's Tom Brady. And he lost 3 of them. Lost 2 to the Giants, 1 to the Eagles. And Tom Brady's the GOAT. So right now for me, no, he's still in the conversation. No, he didn't win. No, he's not. He's not cemented. I mean, because 3 in a row. I mean, in this league, 3 in a row, 4 and 5 years. That's GOAT status in the NFL. For the fact that we will crown people as greats with only winning 2 in a Peyton Manning, and I'm not here to argue about the greatness of Peyton Manning because I agree he's great, but we allow him to be in the great conversation with 2. Dan Marino, had he only had 1. The conversations I would have to listen to from my father and these other older gentlemen and older women who would tell you how Dan Marino would be the GOAT with his 1. I can't sit here and say a guy who's won 3 already is not in GOAT conversation. So I'm there. This doesn't deter that for me, but, and there is one, what do we have from here? Because if you go on to string out a LeBron type career from here where, you get those bunch of rings, but then there's a drastic fall off and you barely get back, or maybe you only win 1 more. I'm going to look at what Tom Brady did on a year in, year out consistent basis and go, man, other than the year that he was hurt, he was in it every year and almost won it every year. So I think it's there, but we absolutely pumped the brakes on that conversation in terms of we stopped at if there's Mount Rushmore, we were allowed to let Patrick in the park. We're in the parking lot still. Hold on, Patrick. We're not sure how much it costs. We're not sure you got the right ID. We don't know. We're not sure yet. So he's in the GOAT conversation, but he's not there yet. And I think that we had to take a step back. I take less of a step back because of what I said about the game. If that man had an offensive line and was just going out there and throwing ducks and was just out there and had a horrible game, I'd be like, whoa. Even in his losses, Brady didn't have one of those. But I don't remember a quarterback in a Super Bowl that had an offensive line that bad other than Joe Burrow. So I have to put, this is a team game, so I can't sit here and put this all on one player. But when you want to be the GOAT, you stand out above the rest. However, I mean, we have to be honest, whether it's Montana, whether it's Peyton Manning, whether it's Tom Brady, they had good offensive lines. What Patrick Mahomes has had over this championship run has been peanuts compared to those guys. So, but yeah, that's your Super Bowl recap. That's how I feel about the future of both of these teams. I'm going to do one favor, and that is we're going to take a quick break because as we get to our basketball and guard the land segment, I want to give a big shout out to our newest, in terms of past couple of months, sponsor, and somebody who has been doing great in terms of outside business as well. So I definitely want to give him a shout out.
Schmoopy Sweets and Treats, the official bakery of the Straub Sports Show. Make sure you get on Facebook and follow Schmoopy Sweets and Treats for all your baked goods and delights. Free delivery in the local area. Shout out to Paula. She's been with us for a while now, and everything that you order is quality. Now, if you're looking for your gluten-free and allergy-free items, she has those as well as danishes, donuts, cannolis, breads, cupcakes, anything you desire.
All right. Sorry, that was a little clunky. I'm getting used to these new commercials that I created. But shout out to Paula over at Schmoopy Sweets and Treats. I split some of the order with my mom, so I got some of the football cupcakes. They were amazing. Some of the pictures actually of my mom's cupcakes and cheesecakes made it onto Paula's Facebook page for Schmoopy Sweets and Treats. Shout out to that. And shout out to my guy Nick who got a cheesecake today. I saw the picture. That thing looked amazing. Nick, slide me. You worked on the street for me. Once you cut it, slide me in. Come to swing by at lunch and slide me a slice. You my guy. All right. Now let's talk Cavaliers. Oh, actually, before we talk Cavaliers, well, I'm gonna ignore this because this is just. I mean, I know I wanted comments, Craig, but my goodness, Justin Fields is the future GOAT. I hope Justin Fields does well. We'll talk more about that as we get closer to the NFL draft and the NFL season. But future GOAT, absolutely not. Future NFL starting quarterback, I might be willing to go there. But this one, Travis Kelce. Is Kelce going to retire? No. I think he is going to do the exact same thing that his brother did. His brother made it to the Super Bowl. Hey, played against his brother in the Super Bowl. That was that Philly Eagles Super Bowl. Hey, are you going to retire? Maybe. I'm not sure. I'm going to think about it. Plays 1 year, then retires. I think this is exactly what Travis is going to do. I think he's going to sit down. And then he's going to start getting texts from Patrick. He's going to start getting texts from players. He's going to start getting texts from coaches. Let's run it back. We just had a chance for 3 in a row. That we're still a dynasty, and I think that'll get him going. He'll have Kelce. He'll have Taylor at home for a couple months now that she's done with the Eras tour. He'll get sick of being at home every day, all day, nonstop, and he'll come back. So that's how I feel about that. The GOAT of who? What you mean, Nick? The GOAT of who? The GOAT of who? Quarterbacks, NFL players. He was making fun of Craig. Yeah, I would too. Yeah, the future GOAT of what? The GOAT of who? The GOAT of Steelers running quarterbacks who lead the Steelers to their first non-playoff season in however many years. That's what he'll be the GOAT of. But no, I don't think Travis Kelce retires this year. Possibly next year. I would say if the Chiefs run it back and win a Super Bowl, he walks out on top. I think if it's anything close like this, I think he probably walks away. Travis Kelce is a little bit older than people realize too. So the body's got wear and tear on it, and Father Time still infinity and undefeated. So all right, let's talk some Cavaliers. Let's guard the land. Let's talk a little bit of NBA. Your Cleveland Cavaliers are 43-10, still first in the East, and for the second segment in a row, I'm gonna give myself a little bit of pat on the back. The addition of DeAndre Hunter has been good in my mind. I know my brother was a little skeptical of it, but we love him. But hey, it is what it is. He filled in for Max Strus, who was banged up earlier in the week, and that defense paid off. Before the foul trouble, as the Cavaliers beat up on the Timberwolves 128-127 for their league-leading 25th home win of the year, as they try to try and lock up home court advantage in the playoffs. This thing's going to take time. But I love the way he's fit in. Exactly. And I'm going to toot my own horn. This big old nods I got here. I'm going to toot my own horn. He looks good out there. Was hitting from 3. The defense is going to come along because now, like I said, he doesn't play for Atlanta no more. He doesn't have to worry about constantly leaving his guy to try to potentially go make a block at the rim. He doesn't have to worry about trying to shoot over to another defender because somebody completely just whiffed on their man. It's just not there. So he doesn't have that. He's got Jared Allen. He's got Evan Mobley behind him. And there's effort in front of him with Donovan Mitchell, and whether it's Darius Garland, Isaac Okoro, Max Strus, whoever those guards are, there's an effort there without trying to be too critical of just Trae Young. But there's an effort there from the guards in front of him in which, okay, I'm locking down who I got. And then if a guy beats me, I'm funneling him to my 2 bigs. And if not, and I have maybe a guy who's not elite, I can help my point guard. I can help a switch over, and it's gonna be there. When we get to the playoffs, and I know that we still have some time, but they're around the corner. These games slow down. If you are If you're an expert in watching the NBA and you watch in and out every year, you know when the playoffs happen, everything slows down, everything shrinks. You know, when you watch a regular season NBA game, the fast point breaks are outrageous because, hey man, I got a game tomorrow. You know, we've got 4 games in 5 days. Guys have to make business decisions, and that's just what it is. You can like it, you can dislike it. I could care less. It's just what it is. That doesn't happen in the playoffs. Everything is slowed down. Fast break points become crucial because they're just not there as much. The effort is there. Guys will foul to not give up the basket. Guys will take one. Guys will put in that extra effort. Guys will not walk down the court in the playoffs. So when the Cavs get there, you can love, you can hate Darius Garland. What it is he's a defensive matchup that is hard to, or he's an on defense when playing defense. He's a difficult matchup because he doesn't guard very well. He's not very big. Um, but now when you get to the playoffs and it slows down, and this is why I agree with KG that we won the trade deadline and are real contenders now. Now we can stick them on Jason Tatum. We talked about it last week when the trade was made because they had just played the Celtics. Jason Tatum was eating us up, and when it wasn't him, it was Jaylen Brown. Now, yes, they get to put both of those guys out there. Well, that's why they're the world champs. However, when you can at least try to take away one, you got a chance. You can't let both of those guys go. So when you start to match up with some of these teams in the East, when you start to match up with Philly, who's going to guard who. When if you see Indiana and you see Halliburton, you know what I mean? If you were able to make it to the finals and you saw Oklahoma City again, you now have a guy who can guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Not shut him down. I'm not saying that he's going to come out here and he's a Kobe stopper, that he's an elite defender or anything like that. But what this team has been missing is when we get to the playoffs and it slows down, how do we take full advantage of Darius Garland? Well, clearly the Cavaliers show that they're not going to trade him away. And I'm not saying that's good, bad. We're indifferent here. That's not part of it. But they're clearly not trading him right now. So if you're not trading him, how do we win a championship? Well, somebody has to guard him. And somebody has to guard the best guards and the best wings in the NBA to allow Darius Garland to facilitate on offense and to allow Donovan Mitchell take some time off. This is exactly what he can do. And in the game, and I'm glad you brought it up, Nick, because I missed it when I talked about it. In the game against Minnesota, he guarded Ant. He guarded Ant good, quite easily. It was smooth. He stays on his feet. He stays in front of guys. He was all defensive in college. That's worth pointing out. This is what we needed. And I had to grab the standings. You have Boston. Obviously, we know what's going on there with Tatum and Jaylen Brown. You have New York when Jalen Brunson, who knocked us out of the playoffs 2 years ago, has given us so many problems. It's crazy. And now you have a guy that you can throw there and go, Donovan, take a possession off. Darius, don't worry, we got you. We will send you to the 3-point line to find the shooter. It's fine. You're good. You know what I mean? You have Orlando. Pablo Banchero gave us fits last year. There's a guy who can guard him even as a big man, help Mobley out. We talked about Halliburton with Indiana. Now I know he's a smaller player, but could you imagine an all defensive player being able to go over and guard Dame Lillard? If we were able to, if we played Milwaukee, if we played Detroit, you have Cade Cunningham. Now we have a weapon to throw that doesn't turn this Cavalier offense upside down because Darius Garland's chasing guys around getting torched, or Donovan Mitchell's chasing guy getting torched, and now they're pressing on offense. Now everybody can take a step back, fall into their roles, and continue to play like this team has, and I think it's going to pay off major for the Cavaliers. Not going to lie. I'm talking too much today. Let's keep it rolling. All around the NBA. In some other news, Kevin Durant became the 8th player in NBA history to reach 30,000 points. And I think it's fair to talk about. We're not going to have the full conversation, but I definitely think at some point we're going to look back on Kevin Durant and say, man, if he didn't lose the time that he did, I think he could have challenged LeBron in the scoring record. That's how good of a scorer Kevin Durant was. But I will jump back for a second. Yeah, I little criticism on TT there. He's a veteran player. He knows better. He does. And I was kind of disappointed to see him, but I did like that. I did like that Hunter was running. He's all in. He's bought in. He's right there with us, and I do like that. Let's keep it rolling. Brandon Ingram agreed to a 3-year, $120 million extension with the Raptors. I did mention that free agent center Alex Len has signed with the Lakers. Speaking of those Lakers, Luka and the Lakers won his debut in the purple and gold as the Lakers defeated the Jazz 132-113. And lastly, I feel like this is a good move, and I'm glad we didn't do this. But free agent Ben Simmons has signed with the Clippers. I don't think that was a good fit for us. I'm glad we didn't do that. I don't think projects are a thing this team needs right now, especially a team trying to win a championship. I think the problem for Ben Simmons is Russell Westbrook already went to Denver. I think a team that has won a championship is the place for a Ben Simmons to go, where a team can go, we don't need you. Just come in here and come on, and we'll ease you back in, and anything that you give us is okay. We don't need you. And I just don't think it's going to work for the Clippers either. I don't know. I don't know what's going on in here with Ben Simmons. So I don't want to be too critical. I'm not Shaq. I'm not an ex-player. I'm not that. But at some point, when is enough enough? Like, when is just pure, I know you have athleticism and athletic ability, but where are the skills? And if the skills are there, what's going on in here that are not allowing the skills to translate to the court? So no, not for a team like the Cavaliers. No, I'm not sure if I was the Clippers, I would do that, but let's just be honest. The Clippers are not an organization throughout the years that have shown that they would make good decisions. And James Harden and Ben Simmons back together again, which is hilarious because let's just be honest, those are two players in terms of basketball skill set that do not fit together at all whatsoever. Sorry about that. All right. Now, last, and let me see if I can find. No, he didn't. Okay. I was trying to see if Straub sent me his Americans Abroad. But hey, it's all good. Last, but obviously certainly not least, we are going to end with, as always, the footy. I don't have any of Drew's graphics, so we're going to kind of keep this pretty short and pretty sweet this week. It was FA Cup weekend. Obviously, we talked about that. There were, for the most part, a lot of chalk results. We're going to start with the funniest one, which was my brother's Chelsea losing to Brighton and getting themselves bounced out to the FA Cup. I want to give a big shout out to the Domino's Twitter account, who tweeted out they tried to deliver a pizza to Chelsea, but they weren't home because they got knocked out. Shout out to that. Leeds, another rival of Manchester United, a big shout out to them for losing to Millwall. The biggest shout out to my Manchester United for beating Leicester City, thanks to a Harry Blockhead Maguire 90-minute winner in which he was offsides, but there's no VAR in the FA Cup, so I don't care. It counts. And then he also had the audacity to post the clip on social media about beating his former team, in which years ago he scored a goal himself against Manchester United for said Leicester City to knock us out. But that's long ago. This is now. Glory, glory, Man United. And little bro, this is what happens when you don't appear on the footy segment. I take it completely over. Bias all included. Don't care. And let's keep it rolling. The biggest result of the weekend, and I wish we did have the graphic, but we did talk about it. There was one team left that was not in the Premier League or the Championship, lowly at the bottom of the second league. Plymouth Argyle with the biggest upset in their history, one of the biggest upsets in FA Cup history, as a team that is possibly being relegated from the second tier in England, which is Premier League, Championship, League One, League Two, defeated the leaders of the Premier League after a penalty kick in the second half gave them the go-ahead and only goal of the game. There was a lot of Liverpool lineup changes, but I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to take some bias out. There was beyond enough quality, because I did go back and watch the game. There was beyond enough quality in international players to get a result. So I cannot agree at all with the assessment that, oh, we put in a bad lineup, we didn't play, I know they didn't play Mo Salah, but they played Jota, they played other guys. There were plenty of quality players there that they should have got a result, and they just they flat out did it. There was some Champions League results. Shout out to Manchester City for blowing a lead against Real Madrid. Some other ones I don't care to talk about because, yeah, I'm wrapping this thing up, and the footy segment is what it is. And lastly, we will have a big one next week. We will review the Premier League. We will let Straub touch in on some topics that he was not able to break down and discuss with us this week. But that's okay. And we will make him, and we will press him, and we will put the biggest pressure on him in the world, as he will have to come through on the biggest Americans Abroad segment of his life, because he didn't send me the paperwork to do it. So yeah, that is what it is. Newcastle. I don't know what that means. Newcastle. Yay. Yeah, you won. I think you won. Congratulations, Pops. That was a good win for Newcastle. As you're trying to stop yourself from stumbling in the Premier League, at least try to stay in a cup. So that'll do it for that. That'll do it for Americans Abroad. Your Americans Abroad is this week Straub, who's in Mexico, little bro, on a work assignment. Shout out to him. Not for rocking with us throughout the comment section, because he's currently at work right now. So your American Abroad this week is the American Abroad teller himself. Shout out to you, bro. We'll see you next week. I want to thank you guys all for rocking with me this week. Solo Dolo. I hope I didn't ramble your heads off. Threw in some commercials to mix it up, so it wasn't just me talking to you for a full hour, because I love myself, but I don't want to hear myself talk for an hour. Lord knows nobody else wants to hear me talk for a full hour by myself, although I appreciate all of you who have been rocking with me for this full hour. I'm not going to rock back the commercials. I want to keep them rolling live, but I want to give some big shout outs still as we wrap it up. Thank you for joining us all here on the Straub Sports Show YouTube page. If you've been rocking with us there, or the Facebook page, either one, we appreciate it. If you are on the YouTube page, please subscribe. And if you're not on the YouTube page, please jump over there and subscribe. You can use that QR code to take you right there, or you can just go to YouTube and search Straub Sports Show. You can find us on X, Straub Sports, TikTok, the SBSS, Instagram, Straub Sports Show, and on Spotify, Straub Sports Show. Obviously, big shout out to the Falls Rapids. We are that broadcast team. Make sure you follow them on Facebook at the Falls Rapids, and Instagram official Rapids. Get your gear, fallsrapids.myshopify.com. Also, make sure you go follow Sports Tank Gridiron, our international broadcast affiliate for our Falls Rapids game. They're going to be shooting our broadcast overseas, so the people over there can hear it over in UK and Ireland. And Austin at Create Your Own Wave Apparel. Make sure you follow them on Instagram, Create Your Own Wave 2021, and get your gear at cyowapparel.myshopify.com. Schmoopy Sweets and Treats. Make sure you follow on Facebook to get in your orders. You don't get to look at that Valentine's Day menu for very long, because it is gone. You can't order anything. Those deliveries are being made this week. Shout out to all of you on our end. A big thank you from me and Paula for anybody affiliated with the Straub Sports Show who has put in an order, whether it was Super Bowl or Valentine's Day. Paula thanks you, and I thank you. When we bring people on and I tell them I'm going to put them up here and I'm going to give them some love and a shout out, the hope is that it comes through. And you guys have been coming through for Paula. We really, really appreciate that. And don't forget the rest of the menu: your bagels, your breads, your croissants, your cheesecakes, your donuts, your muffins, your danishes, your cannolis. Thank you to everybody who rocks with us. Thank you for the comment section. Appreciate you, Pops. Love you, Mom. Love all of you. Thank you to my viewers. Thank you to my commenters. Thank you for everybody who will run it back. I love and appreciate you. And please remember to love yours.